Hello, welcome to the TestRail 6.6 webinar. So this webinar will cover what is new in TestRail 6.6. I am John Reynolds. I am a TestRail product manager, and I will be going through the webinar today, covering all of the new features of TestRail 6.6. With us also, we have Jacob Scott and Shanu, who will be answering some questions in the chat console as well. Here's a brief overview of what we will cover in this webinar. TestRail 6.6 has a major focus on TestRail administration with these changes listed here. So TestRail Server now supports MySQL 8.0 for customers using TestRail Server on a Unix system. We have multiple improvements to the users and roles area. TestRail administrators can upload a custom logo, which will be used in reports and emails sent from TestRail. Then we have a couple of enterprise changes. So project level administration is a major feature for this release for TestRail enterprise customers. TestRail enterprise customers now have the option to customize emails sent by TestRail as well. And then there's another minor change as well, which we'll get into at the end. So I'm going to go into each of these bullet points in more detail here, with the exception of the MySQL 8 support. There isn't a lot to cover really with that particular note. So let's look into user management improvements. So these improvements will apply to all TestRail customers. I mentioned on the previous slide there are a couple of enterprise items, which I will cover those specifically. But any of the other items that do not say enterprise do apply to all TestRail customers. So first, we have added a no access user role. If you're an existing TestRail administrator, you probably identify or recognize the no access as being an option within a project. We have now created a no access user role for any TestRail user, so that a user can be created within TestRail which denies them access to everything by default, and then you can simply manage that user's project access for only a couple of projects that they would need to be managed. Previously, if you created a new user, the minimal permissions you could give them would be read-only, and then if your projects weren't configured a certain way, you'd have to go into every project and change that user's setting. You can now just, as a default, deny the user access to everything, and then just grant them access to a couple of items if that's all they need. Second, in the users and roles area, we have added search, sort, and filter options. So you can now search through the user list in TestRail, find the users you need. You can also filter by status, the user's role, and status, whether or not the user is active, inactive, the user's role, and then whether or not the user is an administrator. I apologize, I forgot which one that was. So you can just filter down your user list. Also not noted here is pagination as well. So the user list for all of your TestRail users will now be paginated, making it much easier to manage dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of users if you have them. Additionally, for user management, we have added the projects tab for any users. So this page allows you to set a user's project settings and permissions without needing to go into each project. So an additional just usability improvement for TestRail administrators, making it much easier to see and manage what access a user has to any project. There is an additional column that you can see on this projects tab, which titled assigned projects, which I will cover when we get into the enterprise features. So those are general improvements for the users and roles area. Now, additionally, TestRail administrators have the option to upload a logo to TestRail. So in the administration area under user interface, you can choose your own company logo. and upload it right into this user interface. And this will be added to reports and emails sent by TestRail. So this is just the basic upload dialog. Once you upload your logo, that report will automatically be inserted, or that logo will automatically be inserted into your reports and emails as shown in the couple of examples here. For TestRail Enterprise customers, we've now introduced project level administration. So project level administration is an additional set of permissions for users. So if you are an enterprise customer, you have the option to enable some project management permissions for a user's role. So these roles will allow you to, instead of giving a user administrator permissions, you can give them permission to edit projects, test case fields, users as needed. So, so to do this under a user's role, you set the manager, you set the permissions. You can create a new user profile or just set, customize an existing user's role. And then you would assign this user as a global role. So these permission settings only apply if the user is configured as a global role. So if you have a user, you can reuse this role within projects. It won't really affect those projects unless it is assigned to the user as their global designated role. So with those projects set, you must then also assign these users to projects. So the assigned projects only affect the users who have these additional manager permissions. So the purpose of this is to allow you to designate projects to specific users, and then those users can only manage the projects which are assigned to them. So if I am assigned these sample projects 1 and 2 here, and I have the permission to edit the projects, I would be able to edit the first 2 projects that are assigned, but the second 2 projects I would not be able to modify. As an overall view of what this assigning will allow users to do, so with the specific permissions, users can create new projects, edit the assigned projects, create new users, and make limited edits to these users. So any user created by a non-administrator, so one of these project managers, any user created by a manager would have the default role of the no access, which we discussed earlier. So this no access role prevents the manager from creating a user who could have access to things that they shouldn't. So the manager would create a new user who would be defaulted to a no access role, but then the user could go in and assign project level permissions to that user. These managers can also create and edit custom fields for configurations with their projects. So if you are editing custom fields or test case templates, you can edit the configurations that would apply to your projects. You cannot edit the configurations which would apply to other teams, other users' projects, but only your own. There are also user variables which are used for integrations. So these user variables can be configured as needed for your projects. Finally, you can also view the audit log within TestRail. So with TestRail Enterprise, we provide an audit log with the high, medium, and low settings. As a manager assigned specific projects, you can view the audit log for your projects. You will not be able to configure the audit log itself, as this is configured by your TestRail administrator, but as a manager, you would be able to view the audit log for your projects and export it if you need to. What these users cannot do, you will not be able to edit projects which are not assigned, so which you do not manage. You'd not be able to grant access to projects which you do not manage. You would not be able to use the forget user function that is just left to the administrators to be able to use. The forget user function obfuscates user information, so for GDPR purposes, but that is left for an administrator to do. That is not something that would be set as a manager to be able to do. You'd not be able to make changes to custom fields or templates which would affect projects you're not assigned to. So if I wanted to change a test case field such as the estimate field and make it required, I would only be able to make it required for my projects. I wouldn't be able to make it required for, say, a project that was assigned to Jacob. I would also be able to, I would not be able to view the audit log for projects which are not assigned to me. And I would not be able to edit any other administration settings, such as single sign-on, site settings, UI scripts, and any other settings in the administration area. So this set of permissions is designed for teams who want to grant project managing permissions without needing to assign administrator permissions to a user who doesn't necessarily need all of that access to TestRail. So when managing your project settings, and in this screen here, I am just a TestRail manager who is assigned specific projects. So when I access the administration area, I see the projects area. I can see users and roles, customizations where I would edit custom fields and templates, and then the auditing tab. And then the projects which are assigned to me are clearly identified here. If I'd like to manage project settings, I can edit any field within a project settings, such as the project type, the title, and configure other project settings such as integration settings. I can also create a new project. And this project, once I create it, becomes a project which is assigned to me. Now, at any time, an administrator can unassign or reassign projects as needed. So just because, say, I create a project, doesn't mean it will always be mine. It's up to an administrator to be able to change that setting. And we will get into user variables in a moment, but the general overview here is just being able to edit, configure your own projects, create new projects, and change your project settings as needed. Now, when managing users as a manager and not an administrator, in the recording here, I could not edit an administrator because administrators, are the TestRail administrators who have access to make whatever changes they needed. So I would not be able to change an administrator settings other than assigning project access as needed. But keep in mind, an administrator always has the ability to put themselves back into a project as needed. But any other user, I would be able to set their project settings, activate, deactivate the user, and make some other changes within the area. However, I would not be able to make another user an administrator or change their global role that's assigned. If there's a project which is not assigned to me, shown here, I cannot edit any user permissions for that project within a user's profile. As a manager, if you would like to configure test case fields and templates, you can edit your configurations for your test case fields, the projects which the case would apply to. Note in the recording, I cannot apply settings to a project which I do not control. However, I can apply settings to projects which I do control and configure those as needed. As a manager, I can view the audit log for my projects. So shown here are only mine projects, and the audit log is shown as configured for my TestRail instance. An additional feature for TestRail 6.6 is email customization. So we allow users to customize email templates that are sent from TestRail. So you are able to edit the emails which are sent from TestRail. So you can choose to send specific emails only from TestRail, all emails. So if there are some emails you do not want to send out, such as user invites, password resets. If there are certain things you do not want sent from TestRail, then you can choose to do that from this page. Mind you, this, once again, this is for enterprise only. You can also edit email content by dragging and dropping fields into the email. So here, editing the forgot password, you can change the text that is included in the email, include placeholders which are based on the context of the email being sent, and make a few other changes, place the TestRail logo or your company logo wherever you would like, etc. Obviously, there are some placeholders which you should always include, such as the login link on a password reset email, unless you actually would prefer them to contact an administrator or someone else to change your password. So here's an example email which was customized. So this just has the logo at the top, and you can customize the body of the email, etc., as needed. So, and then finally, another minor change for TestRail 6.6, user variables, which I mentioned earlier, which are used for configuring projects and user credentials for projects. These have been separated into a tab for your integration settings and are also available within projects. So previously, if you had user variables configured, they would all appear under the integration page under the defects tab. So if you were trying to set a project level integration, you would need to navigate back and forth to configure these, and now you can do them within a project seamlessly without needing to navigate around TestRail. And this change here would affect all TestRail instances, not just enterprise. Additionally, test case template fields. When configuring a test case template, you can now choose the fields which are available and used by that test case template from the template field. So when editing a test case template, you can quickly select or deselect the fields which you want included in your test case template. Previously, you would have to go to each individual test case field. Now you can do them all from the test case template edit screen instead. And that covers all the new features for TestRail 6.6. I am happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. Jacob or Shanu, what do we have?
I am muted. Okay, there we go. All right, so we did get one question that pertains to these new features. Will the users who have project management access, will they be able to see the license details, like how many more seats are available in the license, or can users only be added directly by full admins?
Users can be added by these managers. However, the managers would not have insight into any of the billing or licensing details for the instance. If you'd like them to be able to see the number of users available for a license, that's something we can look at for a future release and an improvement upon this. But at the moment, the managers would not have any insight into the available users or license for the instance.
Okay. See, it looks like we've got some more questions rolling in now. Is read-only still the default when adding a new user? You can update that default as needed. So you can set the default for a new user to be added when in the system. So you can have a no access user as a default, or like a role as a default, so that they would just be added into the system without having direct access to any of the projects unless they were specifically granted those permissions. You can also, if you want to have all of your new users coming in set to a lead, you can configure that as well. So there are ways that you can update that default role.
On that real quick, the no access role is not configurable, so there's not a way to set that specifically as the default. However, any other roles are configurable as a default. And with enterprise and and a manager. Any manager who creates a user those users would default to no access intentionally to prevent them from getting access to things that they shouldn't.
Okay.
But I will add that note as well for an improvement.
Right. Is changing your email layout also enterprise only? Yes, actually editing the content of the emails, I believe, is specific to enterprise. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I think the was it the logos? That's the only part that's available for professional.
Correct.
But the rest of the email features that we discussed, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Updating the logo is available for professional teams using professional, but any of the other email settings that we discussed here today would be specific to the enterprise version of TestRail. Let's see. There is a question about regarding server optimization and documentation around that. I wouldn't really be able to touch on that during this webinar. I know you mentioned communicating with the support team. They would be the best team to continue to talk with about that directly, since this is a little bit beyond the scope of what we're discussing here in this webinar today. All right, I'm not seeing any more questions coming in for right now. Does anybody have any other, anything else I'd like to discuss? Okay, here we go. One user is saying they tried to upload a logo, but it's not taking. The image couldn't be uploaded or updated. We would need to be able to see what exactly is going on. If you are seeing any kind of error messages or warnings when you're doing it, please reach out to the support team at contact@gurock.com, along with any specific messaging you're seeing around it, and preferably attach the logo that you're trying to upload so that we can test it internally as well and see if we can determine what's going on there.
Yes, the logo upload does have some size limitations, so we are not aware of any other issues for images which are within those size limits. So definitely, like Jacob said, include that logo when you send an email to our support team so they can review it as well.
All right. Someone said the link you posted is not available. I'm not sure what link they're referring to here.
Possibly the release notes.
Yeah, it says documentation. So, or they say, I'm not sure if that's. Sorry, I didn't mean to assume gender there. See, we are going to use TestRail going forward. Will we be getting this latest version? Yes, as mentioned previously, there are 2 tiers of TestRail. So if you are using the TestRail Enterprise version, you will have access to all of the features we discussed today. If you're using the TestRail Professional version, then you would have access to some of the features, but none of the project level administration options that were discussed today. So we will be taking so you do have different options there, but if you were to sign up for TestRail right now, then this is the version of the product that you would see installed for your instance. All right, let's see. They said the documentation link isn't working here, but oh, that just goes to 404. Okay. Let me get you the correct link here. You can just go to the gurock.com/testrail/support, and that will kind of be a hub location for all of the different documentation there. So rather than /testrail/docs, you can do /testrail/support. All right. Is this version on-premise adding any performance improvements compared to older versions, like faster than previous versions?
We have recently released a version. I'm not exactly sure which minor version number it was, but we did optimize some database queries for a more recent release. It was just one of the 6.5 releases. So if you're not at least using that version, I would definitely recommend looking into that. But we are always looking to improve performance with TestRail as well.
Excellent.
For the link, I did post an updated link in the questions console. So the /docs/user-guide will take you to all of our documentation. I apologize for some of the links. We have we changed the layout of some of our web pages, and we still have some older links kind of ingrained in our minds. So I apologize if some of those do not work, but the link I did post into the questions area does work.
Okay. All right. I did see. This is great. Good job on the 6.6 release. Thank you so much, Pablo. We do appreciate that. This has been one of our bigger releases that we've been working on for a little while behind the scenes, so we do appreciate that. All right. All right. I'm not seeing any more questions come in here. Go ahead.
Yeah, if we don't have any more questions, I guess we can wrap this up. We're right at about the 30-minute mark, so we anticipated 30 to 45 minutes. So yeah, if we don't have any questions, we appreciate everybody joining. And if you do not have TestRail Enterprise, you can review the available features on our webpage using the user guide. We do have an enterprise-specific user guide available, and also other various pages throughout the product. So definitely reach out to us if you're interested in enterprise, trialing it, or purchasing it. And we did have another question for MySQL 8. TestRail, yes, we do officially support MySQL 8.0. So please, if you need any support with this, please reach out to us with your system configuration so we can help if you have any issues or if you have any questions. But once again, thank you everybody for joining, and you have a great rest of your day and rest of your week.
Thank you, everybody.